All right, so today I want to talk a bit about hackathons from a couple of different kind of views that I have. I've obviously attended hackathons as well, like all of you probably have as regular attendees. I've organized hackathons with Charity Hack, with Battle Hack, and I've been a judge at hackathons. So I've been kind of trying to choose the best team for the best prize and for the best idea and the best technology. And then the last bit, which is often kind of interesting, is from a sponsor kind of perspective. How do you actually choose events? And I want to tap into that as well. So developer relations at PayPal and Braintree is something that exists for quite a long time. I think the whole thing started back in 2010-ish. I joined in 2012. So I'm one of those evangelists with actually more than just a year or two of actually surviving jet lag. And you might be familiar with some of the faces, like Joe over here. We have Justin Wu, who was also one of the Battle Hack winners from Seattle in 2013. And we loved him so much that we actually hired him. And then we have a lot of different people in there, which pretty much come from the hackathon scene as well. Like you see, the boat guy in the left corner is Jonathan LeBlanc, who used to be at Yahoo. He's one of those people that actually started hackathons in Silicon Valley back then when hackathons were still not really popular, not really huge, rather some sort of unique events. I don't really have to explain to you what developer relations is because you probably deal with DevRel guys over and over again. For me, since I've been here for 3 years within this team, I've traveled more than 500,000 kilometers, which translates down to 300 something miles. I really can't, I still don't get miles. But it's quite a lot. I've just had my first 3 weeks of vacation in a row since I work, and it's been amazing. It's been actually so good that on the second day of my vacation, I started writing an OAuth implementation on a server from scratch because I was really bored. And so I think we all kind of have this hacker mentality where we really want to build, right? This is not just something that we do on a daily basis, being programmers, maybe being students that study computer science or law. I think we all have kind of this mentality where we love building stuff and love trying out stuff, love giving new technology a try and breaking things. So this is very much what I really love and what brought me to this team, Braintree. And that's really just the last kind of introductionary slide that I have. Is a payments company that PayPal acquired in 2013. And they are based out of Chicago. Now I think the headquarters pretty much San Francisco. And we do white label payments. So if you're using Uber, if you're using Lyft, if you're using, I don't know, lots of different apps like Fab and so on, you actually pay with Braintree without maybe even knowing it. And with further ado, I want to talk about hackathons. I've already mentioned in the Silicon Valley, obviously, that's where most of the hacks actually started. Companies like Yahoo actually really pioneered this. Mozilla was very early in this kind of group of companies that started running hackathons. And there were two kind of organizations, two kind of ways to do hackathons. The first one came from the OpenBSD group. And back then, they were actually actively looking for exploits within OpenBSD. And they called that hackathon. And on the other hand, Yahoo, Mozilla, and so on drove what we pretty much do at hackathons, rather innovative, and I really hate the word of innovation contest, but rather bringing up new ideas, getting people together that are really smart, and taking away that pressure of delivering a certain piece of software. It really freed people up to come up with cool new stuff, and that's pretty much what they started using in other projects. In a company that I worked before, they call that a FedEx Day because it's a one-day delivery project. So a lot of companies do that nowadays, right? Like some companies even have this free Friday kind of perspective where they say you get a day a week to pretty much code whatever you want. And some companies pretty much do those kind of once a month things and so on. And I think it's a fantastic idea. So there's obviously the company perspective, and I'm going to tap into that. And then there should be the focus on attendees. So what's the purpose for attendees going to hackathons? When I did my first hackathon, and this has been labeled to be dark ages, so I feel really, really horrible and old for remembering that kind of phase. I think that was in 2008, and back then there was not really a big thing called hackathon where everybody directly knew what's a hackathon. People thought when I say I hack, that I do something really nasty. But what really turned out is, for me, I've been studying business computing. This was really a way to finally get my hands dirty and write some actual code, because I was really, really bored writing yet another for loop to analyze the runtime of an algorithm, to run terminal output with system out print line in Java and so on. I really wanted to build something. And my first hack was actually built back then with Swing, which was a GUI library for Java. So if you've ever seen Swing, it's really bad. So for attendees, obviously, there must be this big, big educational aspect, right? People want to learn something. People should come to hackathons and enjoy themselves, but they should also obviously use that chance that we have, this unique chance to try out new stuff, to be inspired by either new people, new ideas, other hackers, get to know some new technology, try it out, and see if it actually works for you. For me, one of the first things that I started doing at a hackathon was actually using PayPal. And that was back then I think that was in February 2012. And this is Seabase in Berlin, which is a hackerspace. It's kind of renowned because they say it's a spaceship. And me and my colleague Ben over there have been working on this thing we call Moneybeam. And just before that, I've met this guy from PayPal who was a developer evangelist over there who talked about the SDK. So I was like, yeah, sure, sounds like a nice prize to win, sounds like an easy implementation, let's give it a try, right? And we actually coded along and worked on this, and it was just a group of 2 of us. And you can see, if you look at Ben's eyes, we were really deep down in the flow. So we were really, really focused on doing this. And I think we won a tablet or something like that, nothing really crazy, because back then hackathons didn't really have that big money prize thing on them that they sometimes have nowadays. It was rather us just trying if we're the kind of fastest and maybe most creative people that do something with that SDK. And I loved that idea, just trying out something new. So back then I worked for an agency, and I learned a new technology which was actually useful for the agency within a few hours. So that was really fantastic and fun back then. I wrote the first Geeklist client for Android. And anyone still remembers Geeklist? No? It used to be a huge thing like 2-3 years ago. He remembers Geeklist. That's how old we are. So Geeklist was supposed to be the first kind of hacker repository. Like, that's where you, if you're an active hacker, are active. That's where you share your kind of success stories. Like, I wrote some code that executes on Google servers or whatever like that. You would brag about that on Geeklist, and people can give you high fives for that. So, and obviously they were OAuth based. And for some reason, I have this really, really big interest in OAuth and other authentication technology. So I kind of wrote the Java OAuth library for it, and I felt really bad. So what we won was something that is really, really even worse than OAuth. It's a BlackBerry playbook. Anyone still remembers playbooks? So this is a company, you might have heard about it. And they had this cool idea about a tablet. And you have to remember, this was, I think, 2012. So back then, the iPad was still not as popular. They just introduced the iPad, I think, in 2011. So this was still something new. And, well, it was a tablet. And as a developer, I just wanted to get my hands on it. So we got this thing. And you can see the guy on the left side was really disappointed he didn't win. And yeah, I think I probably never, ever really used it. I gave it to my grandma. So from an attendee perspective, we obviously talked about trying out new technology, meeting new people, getting maybe to a new city that we've not been to. But then, obviously, from an organization standpoint, if we're a company and we think about hackathons, there's 2 kind of roads that we can think about. The first one is obviously the internal hackathons, which are pretty much innovation contests and stuff like that. Let's try to improve our products and so on. And then there are external hackathons. Within PayPal, we do both kind of things, and there are two initiatives that came out of that. The first initiative that we've had is called LabRats, which is actually not really a nice name for what we've done. And this already happened before I joined, where we pretty much said every region is going to have local hackathons. So PayPal engineers from the UK, from Germany, everywhere come together. Same happens in Asia Pacific, and same happens in NA. And we just try to improve products by coming up with new stuff, or even try to figure out new products by simply just setting right people from different regions together. So the first three teams that win, and we usually have like 20 submissions or so for those global, like local stages. The first three teams, we fly over to San Jose. And then over there, they have kind of like a code-off where the first team obviously gets a prize. And that's, we implement that product within a year in our live systems. And that might sound like a really horrible big landscape, but back then when we started doing that, bringing something from idea to really live on a corporate scale was really painful. Gladly that changed nowadays. And then there was Charity Hack, and Joe already mentioned Charity Hack. Anyone remembers Charity Hack? All right, again, Mike. You and me, Mike, you and me. Charity Hack was driven by PayPal back then in the Whitaker House in Richmond. So we would say it's London, it's not really. And it's a really, really, really beautiful old office building, which is a gorgeous Victorian-style villa, where PayPal has the headquarters over here in the UK. And we have this really nice food court over there where you can run any sort of events. So Charity Hack was running, I believe, since 2010 or 9. And it was really just a simple idea. And that is something that Swift pretty much called out today as well. Hackers can do good. Hackers can create really awesome projects. So we've been working with companies like Just Giving from the beginning to pretty much say, why don't we bring those developers together and find ways where they can actually improve how people can donate? Why don't we bring up different ways for new fundraising mechanisms and so on? And Charity Hack has been really, really successful and really popular. And whenever I look at hackathons, especially those that start within the recent few years, that come from a company perspective, you often see that they don't really have a big background in hackathons, that they've not really run hackathons before. And they want to go on a global scale right away. And I think that is something that doesn't necessarily always work. And out of Charity Hack, obviously, Battle Hack evolved. So to just give you a few impressions, we have Cristiano with hair. Anyone knows Cristiano? There was a time when Cristiano still had hair.
I'm his facial hair.
And you see Tom over there with long hair, which is also very rare. Then we have the Hodge, who is also really renowned in the London hacker scene. And we've pretty much always had lots of those people that were involved in the London hacker scene, involved like Geeks of London and so on. And we were really, really proud to bring those people together. Presentations back then were way, way smaller than we pretty much have nowadays. And it's still just an office, right? And we've pioneered this thing, which I feel really horrible about, which was the energy bar. And what we did is we pretty much bought everything horrible that we could find on Amazon. And then for some reason, the team said, you have to drink that and actually survive it longer than I do. So people had to kind of ingest more caffeine than I did. And we've had this thing called zombie blood, which was really horrible and super sweet and really bad. I think I didn't sleep for 2 nights after that. But yeah, and I'm really happy that I don't have diabetes because of this hackathon. And this is an impression from our internal hackathon, Hackeroni. It was actually originally supposed to be in Venice, so Hackeroni kind of makes more sense. But for some reason, we actually had to bring it over to London. So we flew everybody over to London from our European teams. And we just kind of hacked off. And it was really, really fun because we had this atmosphere. And then we had finals, LabRats, which kind of was our idea of implementing prizes by saying, you don't just get cash for that. You can actually contribute to code, and you can contribute to a thing that runs globally and that many people can use, which I found really impressive back then. So a thing that we often avoid when talking about hackathons is obviously how to not run hackathons. which is, as I said, one of these issues, running hackathons on a global scale without ever running a hackathon on a local scale doesn't always make sense. Prizes, I'm going to go into prizes as an extra topic because I deeply care about it. Food is one of those things that I think is very relevant to discuss over here. Then obviously treating each other with respect. And that all leads obviously into the same kind of topic. What makes a good hackathon? What can we actually do as organizers, as sponsors, as participants in order to make sure that everybody leaves with a really, really fun experience? So obviously, food is fantastic, right? We all love snacks at hackathons. We love coffee. We love all that stuff that we take to pretty much hack through the night and so on. And I'm really, really happy that within the last few years, healthy food started to appear at hackathons. So you should have seen me 2 years ago. I was like 20 kilograms heavier, and I shoot all that pizza at hackathons over and over again. But eventually, after the 10th or 15th hack, you're actually really happy if you can eat some fruit and some juice, and you get some nice coffee and so on. So at BattleHack, we always try to bring really, really nice food. And we try to mix local food and global food, so people have some kind of variety in there. So I think food, obviously, that's a common thing. And since you're all part of MLH, I know that you have lots of those people that guide you into the right direction as well. Then what our team kind of decided and what we've realized is event managers are awesome. So we've ran hackathons before where we pretty much said, well, you know, bring people together, make some audience generation, distribute that it's going to be a fun event, that there are going to be prizes, and that's it, right? But all of you probably know that running hackathons is so much more than just bringing some pizzas in, putting some benches together, and running a hack, right? So event managers really kind of told us that lesson and showed us how to apply polish to a hackathon. And that's not just ordering food and making sure it's there at the right time. It's really stuff like making sure that the brand is everywhere nicely, that the evangelism teams like us, when we run hackathons, can actually talk to the attendees because we don't have to do all the organization, that badges are there and so on. And you all know this is really, really something that is not necessarily something you can take as granted. Then again, healthy environments. This doesn't just start with food, it's also about getting some sleep. When I started doing hackathons, most of them were actually really short, like 4 hours, 8 hours or so. So food was not really a topic that had to be discussed. But as they became longer and prizes were obviously higher and higher, people started to attending 48-hour hackathons and didn't really sleep. And we all know this is not really healthy. So we try to encourage our hackers to take a nap. And that break, that nap, that's just going out and getting some fresh air, is really something that can ultimately really help them achieve what they want to do. So we've been talking to a lot of the winning teams at different hackathons, and most of them actually say they went home to get a short nap or they took a shower or something, and it really helped them because they had that time to not really just look at their code and not find that single bug that they have in there. So for them, it was really useful. And I highly encourage everyone to encourage their own attendees to do this. Put up some nap centers, put up some air mattresses, or just tell them to get some fresh air. Make sure people take a break. A respectful environment is obviously something that gladly is becoming a thing nowadays, where topics like code of conduct didn't really appear 2 or 3 years ago. This is something that really just came up within the last few years. And I think that it is highly necessary that within such a diverse environment as software development and design and everybody that we bring into these events, that we actually treat each other like we deserve to be treated. So our team has actually really, really worked on this, and we've brought up the Hack Code of Conduct that most of you might know because it's on BattleHack. And it's open source, so you can actually use this as a template for Code of Conduct and change it as you please. So respectful environment that obviously doesn't just start and end with putting up a link on a website. You really have to enforce it, right? You have to make sure, and that's something that we've seen earlier this day, where Tim F. actually said, if something displeases you, please talk to one with this shirt, or MLA shirt in that case. So really make sure your attendees know about this stuff. And then something that I obviously care about, working with partners and sponsors. When I sponsor hackathons or events, there are events that treat us amazing. They invite us over to speaker dinners. They make sure we have a great time. They treat us like regular speakers or regular attendees. And then there are events which seem to take money as something that's just granted. And I got to say, this is really not the case, right? Because obviously, developer relations teams or other companies have a budget that they use usually on a quarterly basis to sponsor events. That's based on availability of staff that they can send over. That's based on a lot of different factors. And what we've really seen is it is a fantastic thing to have a great relationship between organizers, attendees, and the developer relation teams. So please always make sure if you run events that you involve them really early in planning. And that's something that I really value because there are so many events happening at the same time. And we really, really want to make sure that we can come to your event. So please approach us as early as you can. And then on the other hand, obviously, bring up different packages. And that's something that my other colleague, Christiane, mentions over and over again, that sponsoring packages often have like 2 different tiers. The first one is a startup package, which is like £500. And then there's the corporate package, which is like 10K. And there is nothing in between. So it's that sort of flexibility where you allow people to pick what they really like to go for. Like rather more a conference kind of topic for me is I hate booths. I hate going to a conference and having to stand at the same table for the whole day. So give me an option not to have that, right? Or for a hackathon, give me an option to do a workshop or not to do a workshop, right? And then this kind of different exposure helps different teams achieve what they want to do. Something as a frequent speaker I love, great equipment, like over here right now. Give people great microphones and some good AV so that their hacks actually shine. During demo time, the worst thing that happens is if people have to unplug and replug and unplug like I just did before, when they are really, really stressed because they are just about to present what they've done in 24 hours under a lot of pressure and they are really, really proud about it. And they have all this energy. So they come up on stage and stuff simply doesn't work or the microphone turns off and stuff like that. So please make sure if you have some spare budget that you can drop somewhere, equipment, especially AV equipment, is always a great spot to do so. Something that we started at BattleHack in New York in 2013 was rehearsals. We've actually realized that it is fantastic to have demos and have people pitch what they've built. But a lot of people often don't really realize what they've built until they actually talked about it live, right? And then there are a lot of teams that work under so much pressure that they don't really get to present and think about what they've done until they actually stand on stage in front of the judges, when it's really about convincing people that they've done something amazing. So rehearsals is something that we do where we kind of allow every team to go on stage, try out the AV equipment so we can see if stuff breaks, but also give people a chance to pitch to us without really giving any kind of negative feedback. It's more like, so you've done this, or why don't you cut this and replace it with that? It's really just open and honest feedback. And so far, our attendees gave us really good feedback. So I highly recommend give it a try. Give people 2-3 minutes to just come on stage and tell you what they've done before they pitch live. It's going to up the quality of presentations a lot. And then obviously demo time. Presentations are, for some people, something that they're really looking forward to, and that's really the magic moment where they actually attend hackathons. And then for other people, that's something that they really grieve, that they really dislike, right? Because they might be shy or they might not be confident about what they've built. So really try to make this encouraging and open and make sure that everybody gets the same kind of focus and attention, which starts with stuff like making sure people in the room are silent. Because obviously, if I present and I'm done and I start talking, I'm really being a douchebag. So that's something that we try to do. And then obviously, something that we do at BattleHack as well is having 2 different stages or 2 different kind of stages on where we can just hook up people so that the presentation flow is a bit smoother. I think at BattleHack London, we had like 48 teams or so. So presentations went on for a long time. And through stuff like that, we've actually managed to still keep it kind of in time. So that's definitely something that I recommend. And this is something that's really, really valid for judges as well. Make sure that the tone stays positive. The worst thing that can happen is when judges pretty much start calling out people for doing something weird or something that is maybe not as great as something that we've seen before. It's really about celebrating success, right? Hackathons and the presentations are about showing what you've built, not about going on stage and getting negative feedback because your CSS might not be as great as your backend skills. So really, really make sure that we have this amazing atmosphere, that people feel encouraged to go on stage and show what they've done. And that's something that we usually really make sure that happens. At BattleHack, we always have one staff judge. And in our team, that staff judge really tries to moderate the judges and make sure that everything works smooth. Obviously, that's also a part of the judge selection. You always make sure people are aware about the hacker scene, and you make sure that they get what technology really does, so that you don't just have like a startup pitch or something, unless that's really what you want to do. And then the last topic that I want to tap into is obviously prizes. We all love prizes. I mean, prizes are fantastic, and they are a great incentive to attend hackathons, but they shouldn't be the only reason to do so. And it kind of became a thing where people are being attracted by cash. I think cash for hackathons is a fun thing, right? But it shouldn't be insanely high amounts. It should be something that's still not crazy. I mean, for a local stage of a hackathon, we give away access as an example, and we fly people over to Silicon Valley to go to the finals. And over there, they can win 50K. But we don't really do the same thing where we say, you know what, we give away ridiculously high amounts of money at every hackathons, because this is not about gaining some IP out of that for companies. It's more about making sure people try out new technology, right? So don't buy attendees. And what we think, what really matters is that you treat everybody like a winner. So that's why we started giving away some kind of micro prizes. So at BattleHack, we have Twitter challenges where we say the best tweet is going to get like a light-up hoodie or something like that. Or we do some weird dancing things. During presentations, we throw swag into the audience. Those tiny things really make sure that people remember events nicely, even if they didn't make it to the first three different spots. So everybody should kind of get something out of it, right? We've started also doing stuff like awarding the first 50 attendees with a small prize. In the first year, we gave away Raspberry Pis. In the second year, we gave away Spark Cores. It's those tiny things that really make attending fun, right? I have a little grief when I see credit. The worst thing that I see is instead of getting, I don't know, a new headset or some gaming keyboards or whatever, some really fun, nice prize, getting something really virtual, like 50K of something credit. I'm not a big fan of that. I think it is nice if it goes along with another prize, because it is kind of like a nice invitation to take the hack along and do something on top of that, but it shouldn't be the sole prize. What I really think over here is hackathon prizes should be something that I really, really want to have, but that I wouldn't buy. Find something like that, give that away, add some credit on top, and people love it. But just the credit alone, I'm not a really big fan of that, because it doesn't really feel right leaving a hack, being a winner, and having like an envelope with an email address on it. If you do that, at least give them a nice envelope. And then what I really got to say at the end is there's two really useful resources that I want to share. Again, the Hack Code of Conduct. It's open, so you can really modify that if you want to go for it. It's really nice. And then there is the Hack Day Manifesto, which explains a lot of the really basic kind of organizational aspects of running hackathons or events in general. How do you configure Wi-Fi? What kind of bandwidth are you looking for? What should the food distribution be like? What kind of shirt distribution do you need? There's a lot of this stuff in there. And you see a lot of companies and evangelists and organizers have actually signed that. So I think those two links are really valuable. And with that, I want to thank you for being here. Thanks for having me. And thanks for your attention.